Nsan so ma obi biara akwaba biem de ba ɛyɛ plot 2 media so busua mɛsrɛ no subscribe wa like wahyɛ video yi de ama obi biara na bibia etimi akɔ yie de ama yɛn busua nsɛm a ɛtɔ dwa no ano ɛyɛ den paa yie na kyerɛ sɛ ɛyɛ Kojo Opong Nkruma atena ase a na kyerɛ sɛ ɔde nsɛm ahorow na aba bɛtu edwa ɛfa ɛyɛ Bank of Ghana ho a na kyerɛ sɛ ɛyɛ statement ahorow a ɛyɛ Bank of Ghana emeki yɛ no ɛno ɛna ɛyɛ Kojo Opong Nkruma nso aba bɛbiebie no so de akyerɛ Ghanafoɔ nyinaa na busua audio sabi abɛka yɛn nsa na kyerɛ sɛ mede ba mu na motie na sɛ motie wie nso a motumi akyerɛ mo adwene ɔwɔ yɛ comment section hɔ de ama na mesɛ wo mmerɛ no yɛbɛkɔ akɔkɔgye video no mu nkyerɛ mu nneɛma a mede aka nyinaa asɔ so meda wase
Exactly. Many of them.
Sir, please, what does it mean when they say inflation is down by 9.4%?
Inflation is the measure of the rate at which prices are going up. So when they say inflation has come down to 9.4%, they mean that from last year September to this year September, the rate at which prices were going up has slowed down to 9.4%. That's what it means. If you remember, at the end of 2024, Deloitte forecasts that this year, 2025, if you follow the program that the NPP government was using to bring inflation down, average inflation should be about 11% this year. So this 9.4, if you adjust for the average from the beginning of the year till now, I think it's about 17% average so far. In 2018 and 2019, during the NPP era, we brought inflation down to 7.8 and 7.1. So that's a context within which this current 9.4%, which brings it to an average of about 17% for the year. That's a context within which you should look at it.
What are some of the factors that contribute to
inflation going down?
Yes.
So usually, so there's demand and then there's supply side. So usually the government can do some things to ensure that whatever is causing the increases in price is controlled. Where the government is not able to do that, the Bank of Ghana will come in to suck some money out of the economy using various methods. Once too many people don't have so much money, then they won't demand too many things, which can sometimes make the prices go down. So in this particular instance, there are about 3 reasons. Number one is that, the currency is appreciated. Though now it's going back up, generally it's appreciated. The government has taken a lot of money from our reserves. Last time we spoke, I told you about 4 billion plus. They've dumped it on the market to try and suppress the currency. So it's allowed the currency to appreciate. And because of that, the prices of imported items have, in some cases, come down or stabilized or are not rising that quickly. So imported inflation is tamed. That's one of the main reasons. The second reason is that also on the imported side, as the global platforms, JP Morgan and the rest are reporting, the global inflation itself is also tamed a bit. So the rate at which prices were rising on the world stage following the different crises is also tamed. And then I think the last one is that the Bank of Ghana has sucked a lot of money from the local economy, about 60 billion. You remember the last time when we spoke in the conference room, I was explaining to you that they've sucked about 60 billion from the economy. And so it reduces how much money people have to demand. And that has a way of also slowing down the rate at which prices are going up.
So, why are food prices so expensive?
That one, you have to look at it from the food and non-food side. So I've already explained to you that imported inflation is tamed, though domestic inflation is still, as in the price of locally manufactured goods is still a bit high. Then if you also look at it from food and non-food, you'll find out that food inflation has not gone down as much as non-food inflation. The reason is that the things that cause food inflation, so how are farmers getting inputs, fertilizers, fuel, for preparing their land, etc., transportation of food items, the margins that market queens, etc., are putting on it, storage problems, all of those ones have still not been solved. So food inflation is not taming as quickly as non-food inflation is taming. So that's why you see that food prices are still not lower per se, despite even the seasonalities.
This is my last question. What are some of the things we can do to make prices cheaper in the economy?
I think generally what all governments have to do is not just about NDC government, but all governments. What all governments have to do is to ensure that, for example, on the domestic side, locally manufactured goods, support is given to industry. Are they getting cheaper electricity? Is labor cost cheaper? Are raw materials cheaper? So that the final product will be cheaper. Then you and I, when we are buying, prices won't be rising that much. And then on the food side, like I mentioned, the things that go into food production and transportation and storage, the governments also have to tackle it so that food inflation also doesn't rise.
Okay, thank you.
We okay?
Hi guys. About 2 weeks ago, when I say we, I mean the Committee on Economy and Development in Parliament, we had a meeting with the Governor of the Central Bank and his deputies and all his technical directors to get first-hand access to some data on the economy. And when we finished, I made a Facebook post in which I said that the Bank of Ghana had sterilized about 60 billion Ghana cedis out of the Ghanaian economy, and that we on the minority side thought that that money would be better used if it goes to the VCTF. Since then, I've got messages from some of you asking, what the heck do I mean by that? So here's an attempt to explain it. So when the rate at which the prices of goods and services is high, that means high inflation, the Bank of Ghana sometimes comes in to try and control inflation. One of the tools that they use is what they call their sterilization toolkit or their sterilization program. Essentially what they do, if I'm to break it down, is that they mop up money from the economy under the assumption that there's too much money in the economy, and so people are outpricing themselves, and that's why prices are going high. So if you mop up the money from the economy and there's very little money in the economy, people can't outprice themselves. So that is a way of controlling inflation by trying to control the demand side. From January till now, the central bank has now admitted, when they appeared before us, that they have mopped up over 60 billion Ghana cedis from the Ghanaian economy, which they consider as excess liquidity. When that money is mopped up and packed up at the central bank, it's not available for demand. And so prices won't rise that quickly and people will not outprice themselves. It's one of the artificial ways of controlling inflation. Our argument from the minority side is that part of that money can be better mobilized into the Venture Capital Trust Fund. What is the Venture Capital Trust Fund? It's a fund that was set up by President Kufuor aimed at mobilizing resources to help young people or Ghanaians who want to do business. So that one is not a loan, it's equity. And that money is made available to the asset management companies and they invest it as equity into businesses. So you have a nice business idea, you go and see the fund management companies, you present a good proposal, and they can invest in it if there's money going into the Venture Capital Trust Fund. So our argument is that instead of sterilizing or mopping up over 60 billion cedis and packing it at the Bank of Ghana so that you are reducing money in the economy to control inflation, there should be a broader and a better strategy to channel part of that money into the Venture Capital Trust Fund, or to enable the Venture Capital Trust Fund attract part of this money that we claim is excess liquidity so that young people like you can get that money as capital to fund your business ideas. Then you don't need a loan from a bank with interest attached to it, but you can get equity investment. The stock exchange itself, total market capitalization, if my numbers are correct, is about 130 something billion. So if you sterilize 62 billion, compare it and see the percentage. We must find some innovative ways by which a bit of that money can be better attracted, maybe even into the stock market, to invest in the productive sectors of the economy so that businesses that are already functioning, they can expand, they can raise more money at zero coupon rates. It's equity money, it's patient capital. With that expansion, can create more jobs so that more of our young people will get jobs. So that's the context within which the minority made that argument after the meeting with the Bank of Ghana. And we think that it's something that the government should take a lot more seriously than the old economic approach of just sterilizing the money and packing it at the central bank to tame inflation. Eventually, when you release it, inflation will pick up again. And so that's why we...
As we were discussing earlier, what are your thoughts on Nkruma and this whole they are set aside for his celebration?
I mean, Nkruma, as I was telling you earlier, is one of the founding fathers of this country. And he did a seminal job in leading the final march to independence. And today, we commemorate his birthday. I like listening to speeches from a lot of our forebears and reading their books as well. So Kwame Nkrumah used to do radio broadcasts a lot. There's a particular broadcast from the 24th of December 1957 where he said something, and that same thing, he repeats it in his book, I Speak of Freedom. And he talks about how we should measure our progress as a country. And he says that we will measure ourselves by the improvement in healthcare of our people, by the number of our children who are going to school, by the quality of education they are getting, by our ability to extend water and electricity to our towns and villages, and by the happiness of our people in the fact that we're able to manage